To become an entrepreneur, you must be determined and ambitious. Motivation is a social or psychological call to action or an innate drive for success. Good morning, one and all. I'm Gopika from first year MBA. REVA Business School is established with a long-term vision to educate and empower the next generation managers and leaders to build sustainable businesses which will not only enable them in achieving operational excellence but also explore new business models. With highly trained faculty and enabled management, REVA Business School provides its students a great learning environment that fosters intellectual, social, and ethical development, and thus enable them pursue successful and fulfilling careers. Our practice of conducting distinguished lecture series helps students develop holistically, and today we are going to witness one such lecture. Importance of India adopting her own PRISM to deal with the world. PRISM is a tool used to collect private electronic data belonging to users of major internet services like Gmail, Facebook, Outlook, and others. It's the latest evolution of the US government's post 9/11 electronic surveillance effort, which began under the President Bush with the Patriot Act and expanded to include the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act enacted in 2006 and 2007. The basic idea is that it allows the National Security Agency to request data on specific people from major technology companies like Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and others. To enlighten us more, we have with us an outstanding personality. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our today's speaker, Mr. Abhijit Mitra. We welcome you, sir. I extend my welcome to our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. P. Shyamaraju, who has been a continued pillar of strength to our school. We welcome you, sir. I also welcome all the faculty members, staff, and students. Welcome you all. Mr. Abhijit Mitra is a senior fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. A defense economist, he appears regularly in print media and on TV. Mr. Mitra is the author of 2 books and he holds a master's degree in international relations from the School of Political and Social Inquiry at Monash University and is currently doing his PhD from King's College, London. He has a regular column in News 18, First Post, Print, Economic Times, Business Standard, Mint, and Money Control, as well as by lines in all major national dailies. He also has co-authored 2 books and has several academic publications to his credit dealing with defense and foreign policy. Prior to his current post, he coordinated the National Security Program at Observer Research Foundation. He has also been a visiting scholar at Santia National Laboratories and at Stimson Center. Now, to felicitate our guest, I request Honorable Chancellor and Dean Dr. Shubha A. to accompany the guest on stage. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Abhijit, sir. Over to you.
Very good morning. I am feeling very jealous when these distinguished lecture series are going on. I missed these opportunities. Of course, I am trying my best to hear every guest speaker, but today I am missing Abhijit Iyer's lecture. But I am very familiar about his this thing because always I follow his debates. See, in TV channels, there are two, three channels. Always I will be watching only debates. Sometimes I will be hanging on TVs only to hear these debates. His, what is that? The debate happening, I love to see him that how debates go on. You are all lucky to hear, and this is not the first time. Every time I am telling, I want to build the leaders. I want to build the administrators. That is the reason I strongly believe that education is not degrees. This type of speakers we have to hear speeches from this type of speakers, which really gives us throws us the right light, particularly for MBA students. It is happening. Earlier also I told I have to congratulate the dean and her team and also students. It is successfully we are going on, and I think if I am not wrong, you will increase this distinguished lecture series. Even I expect at least 3, 4 in a month. That will help a lot from different topics. Anyway, I will be meeting and interacting with Sri Abhijit Iyer again after his lecture here if he has time, right? So enjoy your this series, and I know that I don't know who is taking care of this feedback, and also how much you learned, and through that what is that how you are using that in your present that is as a student, then how we will plan to use when you become a administrator. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to hand over the session to you, sir.
Everybody can hear me? Okay, brilliant. Anytime you want me to stop or you want to ask questions, just put your hand up. This is all going to be out of curriculum, out of syllabus. And if any of you plan on writing the IAS exams, please don't quote me and definitely don't give these answers because you'll get 0. Great Indian invention from a few thousand years back, remember that. So this is all out of syllabus, not to be used in your exams or anything like that. Now, you're all in management, so you'll know this, how much, or maybe not, let's see. How much does India's foreign policy determine your actions, and how much do your actions determine India's foreign policy? I'm going to take you to a slight history lesson because it's very important you know where we've come from in order to go ahead, right? Now, you've all heard of the Bronze Age collapse? Put your hands up. Has anybody heard of the Bronze Age collapse? No one? Come along, you guys are business students. You should know the Bronze Age collapse. It has everything to do with business. This is a business case study, boss. No? Okay, what is bronze? Any science student here can tell me what is bronze? It's a mix of which two metals? Which two metals? Close, copper and tin. It can also be copper and zinc, but zinc makes it brittle. It's copper and tin. Okay. Now, copper is found abundantly all over the place. Tin is quite rare and it's quite hard to extract as well. And so, tin, what today Saudi Arabia and petroleum are to the world today, what energy is, fossil fuel is to the world today essentially, was what tin used to be. It was a very valuable commodity, it was an essential commodity, and it necessitated all your trade networks, right. So, when you have the climate change event called, well, I mean, let's not get into technical terms, but basically around 1200 BC you have this major climate collapse, climate change basically. What happens is it destroys your supply chains of tin. Your entire economy up to this point was based on tin supply chains, onto which other things would be added, you know, wine and figs and sugar. Sugar used to be very expensive in those days, would be added on. Now, what comes about as a result of this? Any ideas? What comes after the Bronze Age? After the Bronze Age? Yeah, but what age comes next? After the Bronze Age? After the Bronze Age? Iron Age. Iron Age. And you know why? Because iron does not need an international supply chain. What you're today looking at as Atmanirbhar Bharat, say moving away from energy dependence on foreign oil or foreign coal towards, say, something like solar energy, was what the Iron Age was, because all you need for iron is iron ore, which is quite plentiful. I mean, you can find hematite, the kind of rock that you extract iron from, anywhere. In fact, Bangalore, you know, all the black rock that you find, some of it is granite, a lot of it is hematite. You can extract very good quality iron ore from here. And all you need is a high enough temperature. So, lots of trees to be able to reach that melting point for iron. Okay. So, your Iron Age was essentially your Atmanirbhar Bharat point 3000 years back, right. So, that is what happened, and Harappa was kind of a part of this entire collapse system. So, when you look at India traditionally, now when we are talking about India today, we know it as a sort of cultural continuum. But in those days, what were the main ways of looking at foreign policy? What were the main drivers of foreign policy? And it's very important you understand that. Most of us were largely fighting amongst ourselves. There was a cultural unity, sure, just like in Greece. You know, in Greece, everybody, all the Greeks, Sparta, Athens, you've all seen that movie 300 Spartans? And you know how much they hate each other. The Athenians hate the Spartans hate the Thebans, everybody hates everybody, but they all come together to fight the Persians. Now, you had the Mahajanapada period and places like that where people were fighting each other, they did not like each other, they more or less unified against foreigners, sometimes they didn't. But you basically had a lack of internal unity. The most important thing you had was a lack of external knowledge. I know what is happening up to my nose, but beyond my nose what is happening, I have no idea, right. I know, so for example, Karnataka knows what Andhra is up to, Karnataka knows what Tamil Nadu and Kerala are up to, what Maharashtra is up to, but do they know what Gujarat is up to? No. This is generally how it used to be. There was also, if you look at sort of expansion, everybody used to come to India. We were an agricultural, remember before this, all wealth was based on agriculture, there was no industry, right. So, the amount of land and how much fertile how fertile the land was determined your wealth. Does anybody know how much arable land India has? Any ideas? 52%. We're the third most arable country on earth after Ukraine and Poland. Ukraine is something like 60%, we're at 52%, Poland is somewhere in between. Okay? No other country has that amount of arable land, which is why you became very rich. Everybody used to come to you. Okay, gems, you had gems, sapphire production, sapphire and pearl production happens off the Tamil Nadu coast between Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka. So for that, people used to come to you. Gold you had, diamonds you had, agricultural wealth you had. What did you need? You needed nothing. So you didn't need to control trade routes because you were the trade route, right? So there's no need for you to go control something outside, which is why we were not expansionist. It's not that we weren't expansionist because of, we were all born Mahatma Gandhi and non-violence and ahimsa and all of that. Ancient India was not a peaceful place, but it's just that we didn't expand for a certain set of reasons. So domestic abundance. The only thing when Ashoka's father Bimbisara was asked what he wanted by the Egyptians, do you know what he said? I want wine and I want philosophers. That's all we needed from abroad, because India still does not produce very good wine. So most of the wine industry is in your neighboring state of Maharashtra, around the Pune area. Most of it is apparently owned by Mr. Sharad Pawar also. But you do not get good wine in India. It is still not improved. The third is land intersection. Now I want you to look at this map very closely. This is called the Pamir knot. Does this have a pointer? Yeah. Okay, so this is your Himalayas range, Karakoram, Kunlun, Tian Shan and the Hindu Kush. There are more coming here, I'll show you. This is your Pamir knot. Now you look at this generally, you see how it plays out here? That is your Pamir knot. This has traditionally been Iran. This has traditionally been India. This has traditionally been China, Mongolia. Can you see how it pretty much determines how these three cultures have always remained separate and distinct? There's a very good geographical reason, and that's called the Pamir knot, right? And on the other side, you have the Armenian knot, which is not so this thing. The next thing you had was all Eastern countries have this thing about travel bans. You've all heard about this thing on how if you traveled abroad, you'd lose your caste. It isn't unique to India. The Europeans never did it. The Arabs never did it. But China and Japan did it. Okay, Japan in the 1600s bans on pain of death, if you travel abroad, you will be killed. In India, you will only lose your caste, there you will be killed. China, after the great treasure fleets of the 1400s, by 1500, China has banned foreign trade, again with the punishment of death. So this sort of lack of travel also, so remember we're connecting this lack of external knowledge with this travel ban. Okay. Then there is the lack of continuity and archiving, policy continuity and archiving. You tell me today, do every one of you here, since you are all doing MBAs, do you know where to extract the business data that each government collects? Do you? Anyone? Do you know where the government archives are? How many of you have been to the government archives here in Bangalore? Put your hands up. Any of you have been? Nobody. How do you expect to make good business decisions if you haven't been up to date on all the latest business statistics? Where do you get your business statistics from? Is it National Survey? Do you go to their website? Yes? Do you know how to extract it? Speak up. No. So this question was asked to this what is that thing called? Not Incredible India. What's after that? The Niti Aayog chairman. How do we extract all this data? It's there apparently, but nobody knows how to extract it. And the answer was, it has to be difficult. We can't make everything easy for you. So one person knew, the rest of you do not know how to extract data from this, and even the person who knows where to get it from does not know how to extract it, which is actually 99.99%. Only the people who have built that website know how to extract that data. Sadly, this has been a historical problem with India. All your records, not all, most of your records are records written by other people of you. So you've never had your own prism of viewing. And remember, today we live in the information age. You're literally being asked to make decisions without information. In those days, they were taking decisions just like this. Information was written, somebody would archive it, nobody would retrieve it. Even today in the MEA, if you want to get a file from the 1950s or 60s, it will take the clerk something like 2 weeks to find the file and bring it out. How are you meant to take a decision on the spot with decision making like that? This becomes the next problem with decision making. See, these are all bad management practices. You're learning about bad management practices. Do not do what the government of India does. That is your main lesson from all of this. And of course, we had a lack of institutions. In 1600 and something, a gentleman called Harvard gave about $700, 700 pounds to set up Harvard University. Have you all heard of Harvard University? Now show me an equivalent set up in 1600 in India. Does anybody know? Huh? Takshila wasn't 1600, pa. That was few hundred BC. And got destroyed also. Okay. You did have lots of grants for madrasas being done, but once the emperor died, there would be no renewal of funds. There was no system set up to continue a policy making, a systematic education or policy making institution. Consistency of policy, zero. Archiving, zero. You want to get the knowledge, you don't know where to get it. You want to be trained in policy, today you will go to a madrasa, you will be trained in policy, tomorrow you don't even know if it will exist. Okay. Takshashila, Nalanda, Vikramashila, these were the exceptions at a time when we believed in institutional investment. For the last 1,000, 2,000 years, we have not done institutional investment. Okay. Now, post 1192, which is when your battle of Tarain happens, what you see is a huge spike in internal warfare, and there were only two exceptions to that rule. Okay. Two sultans called Alauddin Khilji and Iltutmish, who because of the Mongols had very good foreign policies. They actually had spies stationed all across this place who would tell them in Delhi somewhere here exactly what was happening, even though it was 2-3 kingdoms deep. But these were exceptions to the rule. They were emergency exceptions to the rule, they were not the rule. Okay, right. So then you come here. You then come to the British era, and those things pretty much defined policy for the last 2,000-3,000 years. Now with the British, you get a completely different set, because remember, your security problems aren't just your security problems, they also become security problems of your colonial power, and your colonial power security problems become your security problems. So what is that? The first was the British Great Game, which the British were playing against Russia. Now, हमारा और Russia का क्या लेना देना कुछ नहीं. As far as we're concerned, we don't even know where Russia is at this point of time. But the British knew where it was, and their whole game was to control, to prevent Russia from ever getting a hot water port. All their ports are frozen during winter. So if you go back, here, well, here, you'll see this. This is maximum where Russia came, And the entire British game was to prevent them getting anything south of this which did not freeze in winter. Okay. So what happens is, they are the first people to, again, since Alauddin Khilji, to start deploying spies and things like that. Have you all read the book The Great Game? You should. Very important reading. Even in business school, you should read it because it teaches you a lot of ways on how to mess around with your opponents. And what happens is that you have this whole sort of shadow games. You've all seen all these spy serials and things like that. That was exactly what was happening in Central Asia at that point of time, basically preventing them from moving south. And then you had the whole British expansion in India based on that. Now, if you go to here, this is roughly India and Pakistan. You see, there's something very important about this area. This was conquered by the British for its wealth. This part, what is modern day Pakistan, was not conquered for its wealth. If you go to Pakistan today, you will find that about 70% of it is desert. It was conquered purely for its defensive value. Okay? And if you look at this, now you superimpose this, the Pamir Knot, here, the mountains with this, deserts. You see, this is why China really could not expand beyond where it is today. Because you have the Gobi Desert, you have the Taklamakan Desert, you have the Kizilkum and the Karakum. These are nasty deserts. You really don't want to be anywhere near here. Have all of you been to Rajasthan and seen the Rajasthan desert? These are a lot worse. In the Rajasthan desert, you will find water every 15 to 20 kilometers. Here, you're lucky if you'll find water every 1,000 kilometers. These are nasty, nasty places. You do not want to be here. Okay? And this is why it acted as a hard barrier on expansion out there. So what happens is, that other desert that we're looking at, you see the Thar Desert, most of it is in Pakistan, which is why Pakistan was captured to act as a sort of barren frontier land, where armies could not move as a general rule. It lacked as a geographic breaker. So you had two defenses. One, you had the Hindu Kush, and then you had the Thar. And this was generally how Indian foreign policy thought, and it was to do with Russia. But then, what happens is you have independence. Britain's concerns about Russia are no longer our concerns. Russia ka jo karna hai karo, this is Russia, America, nothing to do with us. Now, you become land-centric. What is land-centric? Land-centric has a very specific connotation. I'm going to show you an image. And I'm going to count to 10. I want you to think, and then I'm going to point out people and ask you to give me an answer. So you better have your answers ready. Okay. This is a Chinese rail track in Tibet. What is the first thing that comes to your mind? I'm counting down from 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time up. Okay, ma'am, in the blue salwar, what's your first thought when you see this? Sorry? Good view, okay. The gentleman in the blue shirt sitting in front of the camera. I can't hear you. How China has? Okay. 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 So I'll tell you from a military point of view, if I'm an army person, this is Tibet. It is 10,000 feet elevation minimum. At this particular area, it's about 12,500 feet. I'm looking there thinking this is incredible infrastructure. Tomorrow, if I build a road up to this place, the The Chinese will use this train to transport tanks, ammunition and invade, and Lucknow banega Chinistan. Okay. This is called a land-centric point of view. I am thinking like an army. This scares me. Okay, it's not Surpanaka who scares me. It is not some horror movie that scares me. It is this that scares me if I am in the army. Because I think of everything, every piece of infrastructure is the ability to put one more tank and 100 tons more ammunition in the Himalayas. I am lower down, you are higher up, automatically, like, you know, do we celebrate Holi here in Karnataka a lot? So, I mean, none of you will admit to it, but I know all of you fill up these balloons and throw it at innocent people. Okay, I know all of you do it. So, you know that it is much easier when you are on top of a building to throw it down on some innocent passerby than for that innocent passerby to look up at you and then throw it back up at you. Yes? This is the land-centric point of view. So, I am petrified. What you, when you are cycling during Holi, feel when you are cycling through this college lane here, knowing fully well what is going to happen to you, is what an army general is feeling when he looks up at this being built, except he is looking at it in terms of bombs and tanks and things like that. Now, you change your mindset to become an air-centric power. You concentrate on the Air Force. All the Western powers are moved towards air-centrism, which is you focus on war planes, not on the army to do the job, but the Air Force to do the job. Your attitude on this changes completely. As an Air Force person, I am thinking, this is a dream come true. Do you know when all of you, I know all of you did this when you were in school. You probably do it even now in college. You'll put this, you'll stick something on your friend's back saying, please hit me. Swalpa hit madi. You'll put this on people's backs. I know you all do it. We used to do it in college, so I know you will also do it. This is literally swalpa hit madi. This is literally saying, please put a bomb right there when the war starts, so that no tank will ever be able to come, no ammunition will be able to come. It will take 1 month for me to repair this bridge. Okay, it is literally waiting to be destroyed. Okay, infrastructure is a land planner's nightmare. It is an air planner's dream. It's literally that target being set saying swalpa hittu madi. Now, you transition from land to air-centric thinking because of technology. Okay, because of intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance. Now, all of you go gaga when you see a plane. India bought Rafale, great. Okay, Rafale has fantastic electro-optical system for targeting. You've seen those NATO and Israeli videos na, that they'll show you on TV, where they'll put, they will put one target mark exactly there. It'll literally be like this red dot, and the bomb will go 100% right there and hit it. So you're all looking at that and marveling. But you tell me, have you ever thought, how did they know where to hit? It took hundreds of people doing hundreds of days, hours worth of satellite imagery, human intelligence, electronic intelligence to see that China has first built a rail line. Second, at that particular point of time, you know, this same train, if you hit it right now, this is a civilian train. If I hit it now, it is a PR nightmare for you. 1,000 people killed, 500 women and children killed, Indians are all murderers. That is your next headline. On the other hand, if this was a cargo train full of tanks and ammunition, job very well done. There is a whole thing called ISR, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, including electronic intelligence today. Small things that you can glean from emails and so on and so forth, which show you where to hit. So when you look at all those Israeli and NATO video clips of bombing Yugoslavia or Libya or Iraq with those, red laser, it literally works on the exact same principle as this. It's called a laser designator. This is a laser. Laser designator, the bomb sees where the differential light is and literally goes and hits out there. This is one of the methods of hitting. Literally, it's exactly this technology. Okay. But it is how you are directed to do it that makes the difference, if you're doing it accurately or not. Russia has not been able to do in Ukraine for a whole year. So how is it that the West can crush Iraq in 30 days, Libya in 20 days, Yugoslavia in 70 days, but Russia can't crush Ukraine even in 1 year? It's your ISR. That is where everything comes in, and that is why you are called the information age. Now, there was the Saudi campaign against the Houthis happening in Yemen. Now, what happens out there is, the joke is that King Salman, because he's quite old, the Saudis would come and bomb an airbase in the morning, and then they would come and bomb the same airbase at 12 o'clock, and then they would bomb the same airbase at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the joke used to be, because that King Salman has Alzheimer's, he forgot what he bombed in the morning, so he ordered it to be bombed in the afternoon, and then he ordered it to be bombed again in the evening. That is the joke. The reality is that the Saudis simply did not focus on intelligence. It's called something called bomb damage assessment. After we hit Balakot, did any of you actually see the destruction at Balakot? Did any of you see an image? Do you all remember what happened at Balakot? Does anybody remember what happened at Balakot? No? Okay. We claim we went and bombed some terrorist base in Pakistan. Now, when the Israelis and NATO bomb terrorist bases, you always see imagery. Did you see any imagery? Did you? No. Then how do you know we bombed it? Sarkar ne bol diya, maan liya. So you don't. This was the same problem with the Saudis. They didn't know what they'd hit, and they'd go and hit it all over again. It's a waste of money and effort. So this is why we're called an information technology. It is information that drives warfare, and it is information that drives foreign policy. Now, you have this whole thing about an evolving China centrism, because China, there is the sudden industrial revolution happening. Before, in the agricultural era, China could not really do much, right? Because you had those deserts and the mountains. Today, China can. You've got railways, you've got industrialization, you've got aircraft, and so China could. So by the 50s, for an independent India, China had become threat number 1. So it evolved from Russia to China. The third and most important point of thinking was, if you go back to this thing here, our biggest fear has always been, since independence, Russia and China coming together. Russia and China account for 75% of Asia. This is little India out here. We cannot allow these two countries to come together. So our foreign policy, you've all heard the British did divide and rule in India. Our policy has also been divide and rule. It has always been to keep Russia and China away from each other. Openly we will say Rusi Hindi bhai bhai, Chini Hindi bhai bhai. Now, if both are your brother, but we are the kind of brothers that want the other two brothers to fight and kill each other so that we want their property. You all have that auntie who's trying to take away your mummy's property, no? We all have that auntie in our family. That's what's happening here. Of course, we don't want to take their property away. All we want is that they keep fighting amongst each other and don't become a nuisance for us. Okay? This has been, since the 1950s, this has been our driver of foreign policy. The problem is we never say it publicly. And a lot of that has to do with our own rhetoric. You keep hearing about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Gandhi turning the other cheek, Mother Teresa, all that blah blah, all rubbish. Okay, we are not peaceful. Our ultimate goal, Nehru's goal, Indira Gandhi's goal, Rajiv Gandhi's goal, Vajpayee's goal, Modi's goal has been to see to it that Russia and China never come together. They don't need to fight, but if they fight, it's very good. Okay, remember this. The problem has always been implementation. In India, generally, it has always been a problem of implementation. You have your domestic needs. I'm going to go into domestic needs that impose a lot of restrictions on it. And again, you'll see how we're not up to date with information, with the information age. We have an over-institutionalization. The IAS today has become a hangman's noose around your neck. There was a gentleman called Sir Ivor Jennings, who in 1952, I want you to Google this when you're out of the auditorium, he writes a paper called Constitutional Problems in Pakistan. And his whole thesis was that partition wasn't that it made a Muslim Pakistan and a Hindu India, but that Pakistan got the military and India got the bureaucracy, and he writes, quote unquote, they will hang around these countries' necks like a hangman's noose. फांसी का फंदा होगा. Pakistani military, Pakistan के लिए फांसी का फंदा होगा. Indian military will be like a hangman. Indian bureaucracy will be like a hangman's noose around India's neck. What ISI is to Pakistan, IAS is to India. And I say this very advisedly because I'm the son of two IAS officers. Okay, so trust me when I tell you they're like the ISI of India. Next problem, again information, understaffing. Do you know what the size of the Indian Foreign Service is? Any idea? Size, how many diplomats do we have? $620. Do you know how many diplomats Singapore has? 2,000. Do you know how many diplomats America has? 14,000. How many does India have? Now, if I tell all of you to lift this podium, 2, 3 of you can do it. Can one person lift this all by? Well, if you're a bodybuilder, maybe you can. 620 people cannot be gathering primary intelligence. Understand what is a diplomat? A diplomat is essentially an open air spy. He doesn't hide the fact that he's a spy, he or she. They go, they talk to people, having conversations changes everything. So, you know, in 2019, I spent about a month and a half in Afghanistan just going and interviewing the Taliban. Okay. The problem with most Indians is we read American journals, Americans who have gone there, spoken to the Taliban and come back and said this is it, and then we take what we like from it. It's a bit like, okay, you're all from Bangalore. How many of you have been to Amritsar? Okay, these 3. Now, if I tell these 3 what an Amritsari kulcha is, did you guys have Amritsari kulcha? Yes, you did. So, you know what it is. If I ask the rest of you what is an Amritsari kulcha, you don't know. You will talk to these 3 and then you will say, sir, it is like naan. They put some butter and coriander and garlic on it, but it's naan only. You see where the difference is? This is primary information versus secondary information. You will never be able to describe it. You will never be able to describe it. It will never be accurate. That is why you go for primary thing. And when I was going and interviewing Taliban in places like Ghor and Ghazni, it was just amazing because the stories you were getting were completely different from what the Americans wanted to hear certain things, they were getting certain information. You want to hear certain things, you're getting totally different information. Okay, so it's very, very different. Now, how, with 620 diplomats, are you ever going to go gather information? You can't. You're severely understaffed. Okay. The next is, before, you remember how we discussed earlier that we didn't have to control trade routes because everybody came to us? Yeah, everybody came to us. Today, the way things work is that you're a modern economy. You depend on imports. All of you talk about services. All your mobile phones are made in China. Even the new iPhone that says made in India is about, what, 30-40% made in China. Right? Your entire services economy is based on cheap Chinese phones. How's your services going to run? How's your IT going to run when it's all based on cheap Chinese imports? You tell me one computer. Does anybody here have a laptop that's not made in China? Does anyone here have a phone or laptop that is not made in China? Nobody? There you go. So you depend on China. For your fuel, how do you get things to run unless you're importing fuel from, I know, Qatar or Saudi Arabia or Russia or South China Sea or wherever? You can't. You can't run your economy. We are not a commodities economy. We don't have commodities. So this now becomes your big problem. You have to import. So you can't irritate people. You can't go after China. You can ban TikTok, but you can't do more than that. If you have the guts, go ban Huawei, no? You ban Huawei, let's see what happens. Economy का क्या होगा? Best of luck. कुछ नहीं होगा. Exports. The West is your biggest market. You can't antagonize the West. What can you do? Nothing. We keep talking about strategic autonomy. Where is your room for autonomy in all of this? You're looking at an exact opposite of what it was before. Before, because everybody came to us, we were insulated. You could afford to be jo idhar hota hai, wo idhar rehta hai, completely ignore what's going on. Today you can't. And yet, you find here that you have severe external dependency just when the need for you to know more, information, surveillance, reconnaissance, your Ministry of External Affairs is chronically understaffed. Chronically. Now, one of the things that has changed is poverty. Remember, India was living a hand-to-mouth existence immediately after independence. Today, there is lots of poverty, but we don't have a balance of payments crisis. None of you were born in 1991, no? You're all post-1991. Sorry, I'm an old man, sorry. 1991 was the last financial crisis we had. I remember we had to send gold in aircraft to foreign countries to get loans. We didn't know if the economy was going to survive or it was going to crash. Since then, we've never faced a kind of economic crisis like that. But remember, this was the story of India. It used to happen every 3-4 years. We used to have a balance of payments crisis. So all of this used to go into our foreign policy during independence. A lot of it still happens, like I showed you, the understaffing, the over-institutionalization, and the external dependency. The next thing that happens is, what are the current domestic limitations you see? How is health, for example, a limitation on your foreign policy? Any idea? Or let's look at it just from information, surveillance, reconnaissance. Any idea? Any idea? Somebody said something? Premises of? Pegasus? नहीं, health Pegasus का क्या लेना देना? Health. How does health affect foreign policy?
We don't have a proper systematized health system, so for that we we go to abroad for better treatments and all.
Yeah, okay, good. That's one point, very important point. Also, a lot of people come from abroad to get treatment here, especially Afghanistan. Anything else? Yeah, at the back.
Sir, I think health is a very important bloodline of the foreign trade policy because it indirectly connects with everything, the consumers of an individual. For example, if you could consider the famine which happened in Bengal, that can affect a lot. If an individual health focuses on that, it definitely affects foreign policy, sir. What we import from that could be health
Exactly.
information and what we have.
So between
It
the
is
two
like
of you, you
bloodline.
pretty much nailed it. Do you know 33% of Indians are stunted? 33% of Indians are stunted. Do you know the implications of stunting? Any idea? Okay. Stunting is not just dwarfism. Dwarfism is that. I'm talking about stunting. So it won't appear more than about 1 foot less than you. But it severely reduces cognitive ability. You can't understand as much. There's actual brain functioning effects to stunting. It takes 2 to 3 generations to come out of it. I want you to go to the next construction site you see near where you live, and you will see all these landless laborers come there, and they will be at least a foot or a foot and a half shorter than you. Do I have time? Okay. They're a foot and a half shorter than you. So it is not just that 33% of Indians are shorter than you. That 33% also have a significantly lower cognitive ability than you. And it takes 3 generations to come out of it. The way you solve it is protein. And then we have a whole protein debate in this country. North Korea did something very simple. They just gave everybody soy milk. Everybody gets a Tetra Pak of 200 ml of soy milk. Here you're still debating eggs. How does it matter if you get it in eggs or soy or whatever? Whey protein. Give them whey protein. How does it matter? We focus on the method of delivery rather than the result. Okay, there is severe malnourishment in this country. 33% stunting, 45% malnourishment. Some of you are probably right here, high average, that a lot of us are malnourished. The question is, do you even know you're malnourished? You wouldn't. How many of you here are vegetarians who only eat potato? Focus on her. Camera, camera. Walk of shame. Walk of shame. Won't eat anything else. No karela, no palak. See, she's even turning her. When I said karela, her look. Do you know how healthy karela is for you? But you'll only eat potato. In the north, we have another kind of creature called the paneer eater. For them, vegetarian is paneer. Paneer is not a vegetable. You please show me a tree where paneer grows. But at least paneer, you're getting protein. Potato, you're not even getting protein. You're getting carbohydrate. You're not even getting complex carbohydrate. Okay, so this becomes a very big problem in India. Your vitamin intake, your calcium intake. Are you at least taking multivitamin tablets? Fine, you eat potatoes, but do you take multivitamin tablets? At least take that, ma. Please. I'll come down, touch your feet, please. Okay. At least take that. Even that. Now, have you heard talk about this at any government? You watch TV debates and all of that. I hope you don't watch TV debates, they're all useless. But you watch all kinds of debates. When was the last serious political debate you had on health and nutrition in this country? Did you know about the stunting rates? No. Did you know about the malnutrition rates? No. But did you hear about the egg debate and the Akshay Patra debate? That all of you heard. But none of you went back to the roots of where that debate started. Information. Now, why is this important to foreign policy? Because it determines your import mix. Do you all remember during COVID, we had this huge spike in the value of lentils, all your dals, arhar dal, tuar dal, moong, arhar, tuar are the same, moong dal, kali dal, urad dal, they all went up by about 30-45%. Why? Because imports had ended and you were talking about imports from abroad, specifically from Iran. And that drove prices up by 25-30%. This is why health is a very important determinant of your foreign policy, because today, unlike the Bengal famine when you couldn't import, today a lot of your food is imported. You don't realize it, but it is imported. It makes food a lot cheaper. And that is how you're able to get weird things through the year. Tomatoes through the year, spinach through the year, kaddu through the year, etc., etc., etc. We don't have time to go through everything, but let's go to the next one. The next thing that limits your foreign policy is the so-called Muslim population, which people believe is a problem. It isn't a problem at all. Why do you think that a Muslim population is a problem in the first place? Any answers? Has it ever come out on the streets to protest you normalizing your ties with Israel? No? So what prevented you from normalizing your ties with Israel? Nothing. You've had a certain capture of the Sunni polity in this country, which has been feudal, which has not evolved since 1857, as opposed to, say, a Shia polity, which has evolved very significantly, where Shias are almost the second or third richest communities in India. Okay. Now, with Sunnism, there is a important movement coming up in West Asia, where you have this complete notion. So there was this whole thing of, I'm not going to go to theology, but there's this whole school of Ibn Taymiyyah that comes around the 1300s with the Turco-Mongol ascendancy, which believes that only Arab interpretations can have primacy, because a Turk or a Mongol cannot understand what the Arab context is. And they can't understand what the original. In modern constitutional terms, we call it textualism. Okay? Ibn Taymiyyah had his own school that develops because of it. Today, you have a modernization of that thought. You see Mohammed bin Salman and Nahyan in the UAE, MBS and MBZ, doing exactly this in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. They're modernizing it. And that will probably modernize thought. You've overcome it. You saw this in Kashmir. It started off being a sort of both parties terrorism, which then normalized to the point where Shias are now seen as agents of the Indian state in Kashmir. Mukhbirs. There's always been tools. It's never been overcomable, but you read the literature on this in India, it is abysmal. Even the perception of the problem is abysmal. So again, you come back to ISR. You have ethnic minorities. This has been a factor in your, so remember, this so-called Muslim problem is entirely a concoction to serve, oh God, acha, to serve somebody. Ethnic minorities, again, are they a problem? I'm Tamil. I got very emotional over what's happening to my people in Sri Lanka when I was a kid. I even wrote a letter to Rajiv Gandhi in those days saying, please go bomb Sri Lanka. No, I literally did. And in fact, the very next week after I wrote that letter is when that bombing raids of Jaffna started. They didn't bomb, they paradropped, but anyway, that's what happened. I believe that it was me that did it, but whatever. Everybody believes their own, very important. So again, do the Tamils influence your policy with Sri Lanka? No. You sat back and watched everything that happened in Sri Lanka. You saw what happened at the beach, no, where Prabhakaran and co were killed. Does it actually impose a limitation on your policy? No. Bangladeshis, what is the limitation on your policy? Again, nothing. So these are a whole load of excuses. These are the actual determinants of policy. These two are the excuses given to you because nobody wants to deal with these. Okay, let's talk about the representational imbalance. That's the most important thing. You know, when India became independent, only 10% of India was urban, 90% was rural. So the division in the Lok Sabha was about 400 seats go to the rural constituencies. In those days, the Lok Sabha was about 430, 440, I forget how much. Only 40 seats used to go to the urban areas. And the deal was economic power to the cities, political power to the villages. Today, do you know what the ratio is? Officially, we are 45% urban. Unofficially, we are 65% urban. And you know what I mean by unofficially? Again, ISR, information surveillance reconnaissance. Your information systems themselves are corrupt. Just like somebody knew where to go for data but could not extract the data, here the data itself is corrupt. 65%. Why do you think so? How many of you live in a posh colony where there's a slum? Posh colony with a slum? I know all of you have slums surrounding wherever you live. You live in a very nice flat, very nice house. Right behind it, there'll be a slum. I live in a colony in Delhi called Safdarjung Enclave. Okay. It's outside, the 10% is beautiful. There are 2 Rolls Royces in my colony. There are 3 Lamborghini Urus SUVs in my colony. There is 1 actual Lamborghini in my colony. There are 2 or 3 Ferraris in my colony. There are 15 or 16 Maybach limousines in my colony. But 90% of my colony is a slum called Arjun Nagar, where there are no rules, all the electricity is stolen, all the water is stolen. Safdarjung Enclave is counted as urban, but Arjun Nagar is counted as rural, in the heart of South Delhi. Okay. This is how your urban-rural is decided. Now, do you know what the current apportioning of seats is? 65% get 200 Lok Sabha seats. The remaining 35% of your population have 345 seats in parliament. If that isn't discrimination or apartheid, I don't know what is. And yet it is there. It is totally legal. This is why the farm laws, even though it was just Punjabi farmers protesting, had such a disproportionate impact on the government. Again, very problematic. You don't want to sort out your information systems. Diaspora, again, no impact. Human resources, we just spoke about. I'm going to finish off quickly and then we'll go to question and answers. So basically what you're doing today is, I want to focus finally on the last parts of this, because I think, how much time do I have left? Oh damn, I've eaten up all the time. Okay, I'll quickly go through this. How have you evolved through your non-alignment? Have you ever actually gauged? Now I can tell you one thing that's not changed between the UPA and the NDA government is when we took the health statistics, the cognitive ability statistics, the education statistics, trust me, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. I'll send you into depression if I do my speech on that. I think I've been generally quite positive, no? Yeah, okay. But I wanted to keep it generally quite positive. But if I go into that, we took it to the UPA. They're like, Abhijit, why are you raising all these things? Not interesting. Talk about sexy things which people want to talk about, you know, growing India, this, that. We take it to this government, we get the exact same reply. Nobody wants to hear the bad news. We are not a bad news society. We are a good news society. Okay. Yay, Madhuri Dixit is going to have her 10th kid. Yay, everybody celebrate. There is a high possibility that 33% of Madhuri Dixit's kids will be stunted, because that is the average. Oh, Abhijit, why do you say these things? Very inauspicious. Abhishtu, let's remove the black eye, put whatever you put to remove black eye. This is what they'll do. So, you have non-alignment. Non-alignment came about very, very smartly, precisely because of this need to keep Russia and China away from each other. The problem was, it was never explained properly to the Americans. We had huge institutional capacities deficits, we've spoken about all through this, in the way we think about policy, which meant we talk about IT. IT is not just having Koramangala and your Whitefield and all those places. It's a bit more than that. It's a whole of society approach to knowledge. You can't do it in patches. The problem was it became an execution blunder because you had a horrible man called Mr. Krishna Menon, whose idea of foreign policy was to go yell abuses at the Americans every single day. You capitalist, imperialist, this thing, what do you gain? Now, if I want to ask madam to invite me over for her potatoes because she only eats potatoes, how do I get an invitation to her house? I'll say, madam, I've heard your potatoes are very good. I want potato sadam with, this, that and all of that. And she'll invite me. If I go yell at her saying, you eat potatoes, horrible potatoes, this, that, how can you do that? Is she going to invite me over? No. Now, you're a poor country going from balance of payments crisis to balance of payments crisis. You need food. You were on the brink of starvation at that point. How do you think America is going to react if you keep calling them imperialist pigs and fascist oppressors and this and that every single day? They're not going to react very well. Execution blunder. It was never explained to the Americans, even though our foreign policy goals were exactly the same, to prevent Russia and China coming together. Under Indira, you had a dilution of non-alignment because she signed that pact with the USSR. So we actually moved away from non-alignment when it suited us. Narasimha Rao's policy was the same as Deng Xiaoping's policy. Lay low till you become powerful. This Manmohan Singh Modi policy is slightly more aggressive. Its calibration, it's somewhat more confident, I think a bit too early. But you still have a continuation of the same thing. How many of you saw Jaishankar's famous speech at the Munich Security Conference where he says, you import more oil from Russia than I do. Why are you blaming me? How many of you shared it on WhatsApp? Do you all see that clip? Did you all appreciate that clip? It is toxic. It is not the sign of good foreign policy. It is the sign of very bad foreign policy. Good foreign policy is not done on the stage. Good foreign policy is done behind the stage. Good foreign policy is not saying you did the same thing. You went and killed that woman with your car. Didn't you see? But you also killed another woman with your car, no? Is this an answer? No. You tell them, our intention is, you think Russia is your enemy? Congratulations. We do. But for us, China is enemy number one. Russia could be not yet enemy, but frenemy number two. We want to keep Russia and China together. How hard is it for you to say that? You don't say it. You grandstand in public. Grandstanding is not foreign policy. Again, what you're coming to again is this final part here, which is understaffing and over-institutionalization. Every IFS officer thinks he is the cat's whisker. Single exam pass thinks he is better. He deserves more Nobel Prizes than most Nobel Physics and Chemistry laureates. Severely understaffed, not able to collect information. 97% of all policy makings at the IMF, World Bank and the UN went unattended by a single Indian representative. 97% of all meetings. So if you think you're an information technology, forget technology, you're an information age power, you tell me how you're going to become an information power with all of this. So you've adopted your own prism to look at the entire world, but have you got the constituent elements right? You've misdiagnosed some, you've correctly played some, but focus on what you've misdiagnosed, because that is where it is, when you correct yourself, is much better. Please don't be like, ye Madhuri Dixit had a 10th kid. Please be that one kid in the room who stands up and said, par miss, isme to kuch kharabi hai. Try. I'll end here. Questions? At the back.
Abhijit sir, thank you for your wonderful speech.
Thank you.
You mentioned that India is an information power, and we all agree if we want to know any information, we would Google it, we would go to Chat GPT. But if you see Chat GPT, it has got a very jaundiced kind of view of Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism as we know it, because it has been fed from those Wikipedia sources which are themselves jaundiced. This being the case, what is the effort taken to clear up the misconceptions on Sanatana Dharma in ChatGPT or any of those open sources which probably anybody would go and want to know about Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma?
Right. So the first problem becomes, sorry, did you? Okay. So the first problem becomes, I never go to Wikipedia or ChatGPT ever. I used ChatGPT for all of 8 hours and then I stopped using it. ChatGPT has started concocting. My friend whose father was the head of AIMS in Delhi, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, he asked ChatGPT for his biography. It said, I don't know who this guy is. Then, he said, seriously, you don't know who Mr. Alok Mehra is? And went on asking him that, and I guess it got a bit rattled, and it produced a completely fictitious biography of Dr. Alok Mehra. The question is, do you really want to influence people who go to first Wikipedia and Chat GPT to make up their minds about things? I don't. But we keep coming to the very important question of a citation loop. What a citation loop is that you generate academic literature which only references each other from an ideological point of view. And what do you do there? It's basically an investment in human resources. The left invests in human resources. They create these citation loops. The right wants to do everything except invest in human resources. You look at the BJP, they've got so much money to do everything. All they do is events, events, events. I've seen 100 different lit fests come up. Have you seen anything else? When Modi was elected, he said he was going to send 100 people every year to a Western university. Have you seen that come true? It's been 9 years since he's been in power. Have you seen him send anybody? No. Have you seen any journal of note come out of India? No. So how do you create the academic references? How do you create the citation loops when there is no production of proper academic quality material? Creation requires investment. Lee Kuan Yew used to say this, the Prime Minister of Singapore used to say this, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Right now, that's what you see. All they're depending on is some troll army, IT cell or whatever to go change Wikipedia references or Chat GPT. It's not going to work. Because ultimately an academic reference is always going to win out over 5 bots sitting in a computer room. It's that simple. Investment, investment, investment. The left always focuses on institutional capture. Wherever they go. You look at what a madhouse America has become in terms of gender ideology. Are any of you following the gender ideology debates in America? You're not. Do you know in America it is a hate crime to say that there are only 2 genders? Do you know if you define yourself as a woman, you can be called a bigot in America? If I self-identify as a woman, I should be allowed to use the ladies' toilet in America. If you stop me, you will go to jail. This is the kind of craziness that you have happening out there. And it's been a systematic institutionalized capture by nut jobs like this. But it's all couched in highly science. You will have doctors come and say, I don't know what a woman is. This is the kind of brain capture that they do. I have not seen the right be able to come back to it because humanities was invented by the left. Scientific humanities as we know it, 99% of humanities literature is left literature. What can you do about it? Nothing. There is the sane left. Unfortunately, right now you have mostly the insane left. But it is what it is.
Can
Next.
we have next question?
Hello, sir. My name is Preeti Lakshmi. I'm from first year MBA. My question to you is when we were talking about the airstrike happened in Balco, the airstrike that happened. Are you implying that the whole airstrike thing was based on autocracy, as only 0.2% of Indian Air Force itself knew about it and were involved in it? And are you implying that it never happened? And if at all it never happened, and India used it as a strategy to put up the fact that India has the ability to fight back, was it right to use that strategy?
No. It did happen, and I know this because we saw Israeli synthetic aperture radar imagery of it. They have a satellite which did capture, it's not imagery in the true sense of the word, but it is something, so we saw something. The problem was the Indian government did not have photos. The Indian government could not convince its own people, except, you know, you're questioning me and therefore it is unpatriotic of you. We had sources on the ground who told us it happened. So did it happen? Yes. Were you able to convince the world it happened? No. Were you, most importantly, were you able to convince Pakistan that it happened? No. Pakistan will only accept things when it is black and white clear to them in their face. If they get the ability to say it did not happen, for them in their minds it did not happen. Even today in Pakistani textbooks, they'll tell you that they won the 71 war except in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is different matter, but in 71 we won the war. That's what they say. So have you understood your enemy? Information, surveillance, reconnaissance. Have you surveilled your enemy? Have you gotten the proper reconnaissance to destroy your enemy's morale? No. So it happened. The point is, what is the point of a victory in private when your enemy requires a public humiliation?
Sir, it was not unpatriotic of me
No,
to
no, I'm
think
not
that.
saying it is. I'm saying the government says it is.
Yes, sir. So if at all in future there is a, like everybody has a strategy to move on, and if such, like, if at all in future Indian government uses a false claim to strategize a concept to come up in, like, in the world, in any field, is it a good approach or a bad approach?
Well, I think the point of the presentation was there are so many things in foreign policy that we simply don't factor in because the health department doesn't talk to the MEA. The education department doesn't talk to the MEA. Your MEA thinks purely from a security point of view, which is kind of what I was trying to show you, where they don't really consider all the other things. So, you know, government depends. So assume I'm the foreign minister. I depend on the home minister doing his job properly. I depend on the education minister doing his job properly. I can't be doing the education minister's job. I can't be doing the home minister's job. So when the industries minister comes and tells me Atmanirbhar Bharat, I have to believe Atmanirbhar Bharat. I base my foreign policy on it. So there's so much distortion of policy happening which people don't want to hear. It becomes very problematic. So for example, I know for a fact Vladimir Putin does not trust India. And the reason for it is he always believed that India used to, he believes, lie to him. That wasn't accurate. It was more that India used to overpromise and underdeliver. Because we used to believe we could do certain things, we would promise the Russians certain things, and then we'd find there was no implementation capacity to do it. But he believed that we were going to the American camp and being deceitful and duplicitous with him. Now he has no choice but to like us because of what the West has done to him. So he's pretending to like us a lot. But he doesn't actually. There have been lots of instances like this. So a lot of Indian foreign policy is based on wishful thinking. It isn't actually based on data. So when one of the things when you look at PRISM and things like that, where is your data coming from? Where is your information coming from? Everything is based on information, but you're not processing information, you're not synthesizing information. What do? I don't know. Anybody else?
So I'm Dikshan, first year MBA. So as you said that information is like we don't have proper information sources and all, but nowadays it is kind of a narration war. Like as you said, you went to Afghanistan and interviewed some of the Taliban, and you got a different story than from the West. So then, how do we trust like what we get to know?
You don't, you triangulate. Unless you travel, you're not going to get all the information, number one. So primary research is everything. But if you can't do primary research, triangulate. Read as many different points of view from different countries as you possibly can. Even that is not going to give you 100%. That's only going to give you about 60, 70%. That remaining 30%, you have to go there. And when I say go there, I mean please go there and talk to the people and go about the ground. Because most Indian analysts, what they do is they go from 5-star hotel to 5-star hotel, flying business class and accumulating points. Do you know, every time we're doing an international conference, what the biggest conversation we have is? Not our presentations, not what we're going to talk to the Iranians or the Saudis about. It's about which airline we're flying, how many airline points we're getting, how many free Marriott hotel nights I'm going to get, and how many upgrade points I'm going to get. This is what happens. This is the reality. You'll have 100 different conferences happening at 5-star. These 5-star hotel conferences are the worst. So one of the reasons I know this Palestine movement will always fail, for example, is I have not seen a single Palestinian friend of mine, when they take me out for lunch when I'm in Paris or Jerusalem or wherever, it is never to a roadside place. It's always to the poshest 5-star, which I can't even afford. One guy's fellow is the Palestinian, dad is the Palestinian Minister for Public Works, rides a Rolls Royce in Paris. I can't even dream of a Rolls Royce. Where are you getting this money from? When you go to Ramallah, you don't see enough money for a Rolls Royce. Where are you getting this Rolls Royce from? I've known you for 20 years, you didn't have money for Rolls Royce, suddenly you have a Rolls Royce. Kaise? So there are these buddhijeevis who go from 5-star hotel to 5-star hotel, which is not going to solve your problem. Ground research is what you do. But in JNU, a PhD student, what is a PhD? You know, a PhD is to add primary knowledge, primary data. JNU is the only place where you can, India generally, is the only place where you can get a PhD without doing primary research. And if you do primary research, do you know how much JNU gives you money if you're doing a PhD in, say, South America? Guess. Guess.
In lakhs?
80,000 rupees. Do any of you have Make My Trip or anything? Just Google how much a ticket from Bengaluru to, I don't know, Rio de Janeiro or Sao Paulo costs return. Economy. Don't even do business. Do economy. Quickly do. I'm giving you assignment right now. Quickly do. Make My Trip, whatever, booking, yatra.com, whatever.com. Check, tell me. They're giving you 80,000 rupees for your, this is meant to be stay, accommodation, travel, everything. 1,08,000. It isn't even enough to cover your ticket. Where are you going to stay? What are you going to eat? They want you to do primary research like this. And no Indian academic will travel on their own money. Shiva, no. Traveling on your own money is the greatest crime. It is even worse than killing a human being. I always travel on my own money though. I go to the most bizarre places like Afghanistan or Uzbekistan or Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan because this is something the Americans taught me. The Americans get money to do this. We don't get money to do this, so I spend my own money doing it. It's very fulfilling. You get to learn, and you do not stay at 5 stars. You talk to ordinary people. There have been so many times in Syria where I've literally been taken away for a day or two by the Mukhabarat. That's the secret police. You know who they are because they wear these very light pink uniforms. Like, see this lady sitting here in the pink salwar kameez? Exactly that color. They wear these specific uniforms, they'll take you. Where are you? And you just have one standard line, Musafir-e-Hind, Musafir-e-Hind. They're like, oh, Hind, Hind, Hind. And then you show them photos of Amitabh Bachchan and things, and you're kind of okay. But you generally put an Indian in a situation like that, they'll be like, oh my God, mere saath terrorist ho gaya, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, run away. Nothing outside 5-star and group tours. God forbid you interact with the local population. So that is why primary research, you will hit gold if you do primary research. If you do not do primary research, this will be like the Amritsari kulcha you've never tried. It is like naan with coriander and garlic. Follow up?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your informative session.
I hope it wasn't too negative. I haven't demoralized you. And I hope you found something useful from it.
First and foremost, I would like to thank in absentia our dear Chancellor for supporting and felicitating such lecture series. Thank you, sir. It gives me immense pleasure to thank our today's speaker, Mr. Abhijit Mitra, for his time and valuable insights. Thank you, sir. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the faculty members, staff, and students of REVA Business School for their cooperation. Thank you all.